Hello friend, welcome back. This is probably going to be one of the most important aspects that has to be experimented with, has to be recognized, has to be seen, has to be understood and conceptualized so that your self-mastery movement is a physical application on this plane, not a mental application. So, the mind is your most powerful tool. Now, why do I say that after I just introduced you to strategy and authority and, type? Why am I saying the mind is the most powerful tool? Well, we are designed to be cognitive. What does that mean? We are designed to have a pure connection with the universal source information. We are designed for that. Self-mastery, self-awareness, self-actualization, self-reflected consciousness. The whole point of a nine-centered being isn't that we're here to live out a fearful life, trying to survive, trying to figure out this mental plane, and trying to, dishonor and disregard the emotional intelligence. No, we are designed to be of this creation. I will say it again, and I will say it numerous times. On the chart that you have pulled from mybodygraph.com or jovianarchive.com, that bodygraph, that imprint, that code is a frequency. That is your blueprint for the architecture that you are designed to represent. And when we use that architecture and we navigate on this plane based off of the physical body's navigation, the physical body's GPS, then the mind becomes this beautiful outer authority, and we'll chat about that. But without that navigation system, without that ability to drop into the frequency, the imprint of that body graph, the mind is designed as a reactionary mechanism. And then all of a sudden, the conditioned mind drags us down paths that aren't good for us. So why is the mind the most powerful tool? It is the most powerful tool because it can be our ally or it can be our foe. And it can be used in both ways. So we are designed to be cognitive. The mind is here to measure. Okay, the mind is always going to say, well, there's this and there's that. But it has absolutely no idea how to weigh whether the this or the that is actually good for you. And go back to some decisions that you've made. I know this for myself as well. It will tell a story on both sides. The mind will tell a story on both sides. Meaning, well, this was the experience, or we should have done it this way, and if we would have done it this way, we could have had this result. So the mind never knows the right decision, and the mind will never, ever, ever say, oh shit, sorry. No. It's going to say, well, why didn't you do it this way? I told you you could have done it this way. Well, why didn't you do it that way? Why are you doing this? And, the mind is constantly talking to us, always chattering, always nattering. The mind never knows the right decision. It's always playing both sides of the fence. It's always playing both sides of the game, because it will never take blame. It never wants to be blamed, because it's like, hey, I just gave you all these options. And whatever, if you make the wrong decision, like, I'm just gonna blame you. So it's, I'm talking and I'm anthropomorphizing it, as Raw would say. I'm making it sound like it's its own entity. Well, in a way, when we separate the conditioned mind, or we separate the mind from the body, that's what happens, is that it becomes like this battlefield between it and us. And the whole point of design is to go, listen, let's make the mind an ally. Let's actually remove it from decision maker. Take that job away from it. It was never designed to do that job. It was never designed to weigh out the pros and cons for us. It just never was. But we handed over this job to it, trying to keep us safe, trying to, be certain and, be mentally defensive and, defend our position. But that's not the beauty of the mind. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to never let the mind make a decision. Never let the mind make a decision based off of the this and the that. Those decisions have to come from the body, because the body is the life. You would not be on this plane if you were just a mental frequency. No, you're here in a body, in this human meat suit, and you are designed to let the body navigate. And what happens is that when we do that, the clarity of how we are perceiving life, how we are motivated, how we are navigating, this outer authority that our mind is designed to be. It's not designed to be our inner authority ever, 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 including even if you are a mental projector. Doesn't matter. The mind is never designed to be your authority. The outer authority is about sharing the measurement and that decoding of the experience. Now, what do I mean by decoding? Well, our minds are really designed to, as I had indicated in the profile module, the splenic center is an awareness center that is gathering intelligence. The solar plex is an awareness center that is gathering intelligence. And then our mind is actually built to just decode and witness our experience. It's not here to make any decisions. It is here to decode it, to, measure it, to, create the this and that, because we're in this duality. So the enriched awareness happens when the mind is not stuck in the repetition of trying to figure things out. We are not designed to figure it out. We are designed to allow for the strength and the beauty of our mind to be connected to higher source. And then when that happens, there's nothing to figure out. Our connection with source, with our teachers, with the knowledge field will provide us with the answers that we need. It's not about the mind trying to figure anything out. So the mind is never going to stop, right? It is just to watch that stuff of the mind and never use this stuff to make a decision. It's about non-interference, okay? Non-interference means you don't put up barriers and hurdles and brick walls and, junk and whatever you want to say. Don't put all that stuff in the way of your physical body navigating on this plane. And that's what the mental plane will do if we're using it to make decisions. We want to be in a place of non-interference, not getting in the way of the navigation of the physical body. So for me, it's about responding, period. And not falling prey to and falling into the trap of a reactionary mind. Okay? Do not interfere with the body with the reaction of the mind. It's about responding. So, even with this particular course, the idea was created and I put it out there to the universe. Many people were asking me, how come you're not teaching? How come you don't have courses online? Blah, blah, blah. So the idea for this particular program came to me. I put it out there to the universe. And then as soon as clients started buying it, there was a response to build it, because I needed to understand the energy field that I'm interacting with to build it. So it was all a response. There was nothing mental in that. So the mind can lay out the information, and yet all that information is not to be used to make decisions. We are absolute, beautiful data sources for other people. That's what outer authority really is. All the data that is stored in our actual brains, and we're going to get into that. It's actually, the data isn't for us to make decisions off of. It's to be an outer authority for other people. That's what passenger consciousness is. Passenger consciousness is to be absorbed and to be an absorbed audience in watching the movie. This is not about being detached from the mind, because the mind is beauty. The mind is, it doesn't have to be this excruciatingly painful, mental process. No, it can be beautiful. When the mind is connected, when you're navigating on this plane and you're witnessing yourself and you're fully connected, the tension in the body is, less. The resistance in the physical body is less. The creation, the abundance, all of this stuff just happens. So the conditioned mind, of course, wants to control. This is a lie. We cannot control life. There is a program happening, and I brought you the global cycle that we're in right now at the very beginning of this course, because I believe it's really important. So we are not here to struggle on the material plane. Our abundance blueprint, which we are going to discuss in massive depth in one of the modules, the strategy and authority is to guide you on this plane so that you can move without resistance. What this does is it liberates the mind from that shoulda, woulda, coulda. It liberates the mind from being that decision maker. It doesn't really want the job. It really wants to do its own job. It wants to decode. It wants to measure. That's what it's built to do. It doesn't want all that other garbage clogging it up, stopping it from, its own scalar wave energy, from its own beautiful synapses of the nervous system and all that frequency that happens in the mind. It wants to be liberated. So the mind blows it for us every time when we rely on it, because it cannot weigh what is good for us and what is bad for us, period. The physical body is the only thing that can indicate whether the decision is being moved towards or the decision is being moved away from, period. The mystical connection with the matrix happens when the mind is used correctly. The mind is built to be a witness. So the mind becomes the tool to use to reach out and commune with the other. And as you use your imprint, whatever's on your bodygraph, all that frequency, as the unique filtering mechanism you are designed to be, all of a sudden, it's a completely different game. Okay? So here's a beautiful quote from Ra. Everybody is so interested in healing the mind. It's a joke. They're not here to be healed. They are there to be experienced. It doesn't matter what kind of trip your mind goes through. If it's not making your decisions, then it's just something that it does. It's what your mind does. When you take this decision-making power away, then you just get to see what your mental system is there to measure. And it begins to operate the way in which your mind was intended to operate, as a way of translating cognitively your experience of being on this plane. This is the decoder, okay? It isn't there to be the driver. It's not about figuring out what you have to do and where you have to go and all of that stuff. It isn't. It's about seeing. It's about seeing your authority will move you. Out of seeing, your authority will move you. That's what you get. And because it's your authority that moves you, that seeing becomes an expression. It becomes your awareness. It becomes the outer authority that is there to be shared with the other. This is a deeply, deeply profound quote from Ra. So at the center of the mind's configuration is reaction. This is its chemical makeup. It is built to react. And I have said this many times in different videos. The HeartMath Institute has indicated that the electromagnetic field around the body, around the actual physical heart, is already 6 seconds out into the future, and then the mind is catching up. So the mind is reacting. So the mind is scanning all time, past, present, and future. But it does not spend much time in the present. For the most part, the mind is worrying about what might happen and anxious about whatever, hence the reason meditation is so important, okay? So meditation assists us in creating new neural pathways. As we bring our minds into the present, retraining the mind is not an easy task. Years of conditioning is stored in the files of that gray matter. And the worry and the anxiety are how 99% of the population perceive the world. Again, at the core of its chemical makeup, the mind is reactionary. It is reacting to the past and what you could have been or could have done better. It is reacting to the future with what you should do to have this or that outcome. And if you would have just done it this way, you can have that. It's a loop of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And all of this is a false narrative. None of that matters when it comes to decision making. All of this reaction is happening in the mind. As ideas come to you and opinions are formulated and the insights show up, the mind is then forcing the body to move, forcing you to initiate the body. That is the reactionary mind, is initiating the body. We never, ever, ever want to move from a reactionary mind. We always want to move from our strategy and then our authority. So the dysfunction of the personality, the mind that tries to control the decision-making process, this is the great distortion. This is where everyone goes astray. This is where the not-self lives, and this is the homogenized world. Don't be fooled by that. So our personality, the black in the design, that is actually our healthy psychology. And this is where we are designed to communicate and be an outer authority to other people. The personality, however, believes that that's all that there is, and it will, look at the body as, a parasite. And really, it's the other way around. Had the body not been created, there would be no mind. So the body is the life. And we never want to be initiating the body through the reactionary mind. But that's what happens in 99% of decision making. So I just want to show you the head center. So associated with the pineal gland is the head center, okay? This regulates the flow of information between the gray matter and the neocortex. This process is below our level of consciousness. We have no idea what our pineal gland is doing, how the information from our gray matter to our white matter is taking place. We are clueless to this process. So this is a fuel that drives our thinking and conceptualization and how we process the consciousness field. Or as a pressure to seek answers and know the whys, which can be very, very unhealthy for us. So inspiration is the way we take in information from the cosmic field of consciousness. We inspire others or be inspired by others. So the pineal gland is this beautiful, processor between the gray matter and the neocortex. Now, something Ra has always said, never piss around with your melatonin or serotonin. Never. This is our circadian rhythm. This is what your physical body, the circadian rhythm of your physical body, this was kind of like your clock that was provided to you when you jumped into this meat suit. And whether, you live out a very few moments on this planet, or whether you live out many years on this planet, there is a circadian rhythm, a clock that is provided to you. Don't piss with it. Don't, play around with melatonin and serotonin. Allow for, from an outside aspect, doing that through breath, doing that through melatonin, doing that through correct exercise. However your physical body wants to interface to, regulate and use those cycles correctly for yourself, that's a totally different story. That's natural. That's what you're designed to do. However, if we're taking outside things, supplements, drugs, whatever it is, to piss around with that chemical function, then we begin to adjust our cycles, adjust our clock, and this is where we begin to lose the beauty of our life. Okay? And if you have already done so, just relax into the fact and just honor that took place and move forward through the correct strategy and authority, and the melatonin and serotonin and the hormone regulator and module of this particular gland will it can repair, meaning pair itself with the consciousness field and allow for the physical body to also repair with the health and wellness of itself. So the Ajna Center, the biological association, is the neocortex, the visual cortex, and the pituitary gland. So the Ajna Center is the processing hub that transforms the pressure from the head center into useful information for review, research, and communication. This has absolutely nothing to do with decision making, okay? It's just taking the data and it is decoding the data. It's, that's all it's doing. It is the interpreter or the conceptualization center. How we perceive the world through visual and acoustic means. So Ra has always indicated the 17 is the right eye. The 11 is the left eye. So 17 is going to see patterns. We're on the logical side, which you're going to really drop into here next when we talk about circuitry. So 17 is logical, patterns. It sees patterns, it sees data. 11 operates in a wave pattern, and that's the left eye. And this wave pattern is going to move up and down. So whatever you're taking in with the 11th gate, with that left eye, there is no truth in the now. It's always in motion. Where the right eye is taking snapshots like in that moment, and that is the data it's taking in moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. Now the inner ear, the 43, we always talk about the third eye, and Ra always talked about the third ear because we are frequency based. Now the pineal gland does have rods and cones, okay, in the head center. The pineal gland does have rods and cones, very similar to our eyes. So, when we close our eyes and we can have visualizations, yes, we're taking in the frequency of the inner ear We're taking in the frequency of the inner ear, and then we are allowing that inner ear to then be translated in the pineal gland into visual stimulation. So the Ajna Center always operates over all time. It's like I had said, it's the past, present, and the future. A decision made mentally has a long shelf life and can be mulled over until death. So it measures the this and the that. So if making decisions from this place, then you are trapped in a never-ending cycle of the mind giving you options and never making the correct decision for you. So like I had said in the very first slide, the mind wants to give you all these different options because it never wants to be blamed for anything. And then you make a decision mentally, and oh my goodness, it reprimands you, it gets mad at you, and it's like, well, that was just an option. Maybe we need to try it this way, And it's mean, it's nasty, it's rude, it's a bully. But when the mind is our ally, totally different story. Totally different story, because the mind is doing what it's designed to do, and we just then get to witness it because it's not making decisions for it. It's not all cluttered up. It's not like a house that's full of hoarding stuff. It's clear, it's crisp, it's beautiful. So mental anxiety is the fear in this awareness center, fear of not knowing or being misunderstood. So again, the biological correlation here with the Ajna Center is the neocortex. This is the conscious thought, the spatial reasoning, languaging, sensory perception, and motor commands. The visual cortex, it's receiving the visual input, visual and frequency based. And the pituitary glands, the anterior and the posterior, this is located at the base of the brain, it's our body's maintenance headquarters. So it's the master gland of our endocrine system that is ultimately connected to all parts of our body. So if the pituitary gland and the pineal gland are unhealthy, if they're all cluttered up, if they are distracted trying to make decisions for the body, and the body is in resistance, then all of a sudden the physical body is in disrepair. And that disrepair can be reversed and repaired to health and wellness based off of the repairing of our minds to the consciousness field, to the matrix, to our higher source. So now, what is the application piece here? So we want to always be experimenting with this, recognizing this. I will tell you that coaching men and women all over the world for the last 5.5 years, the not self is very, very convincing to people. I have spoken to, at least 100 different projectors on this planet, and the bitterness that penetrates through them, and the belief that nobody will ever invite them or listen to them and listen to their advice is palpable in their energy fields. I have spoken to hundreds of generators and manifesting generators, and the not self, the palpable energy there is that if I don't move from reaction, I don't understand. I cannot figure out response. And the not self, the hurdles that the not self puts up is insane. For, the few tens and of manifestors and reflectors that I have interacted with, so many reflectors will say, nobody wants me to evaluate. Nobody wants that. There are thousands of different companies in this world that hire consultants every single day to come in and evaluate their systems, to come in and evaluate their performance. There are thousands of businesses that want to be better and do better. And yet, the conditioned mind convinces these reflectors that they are useless. And for our manifestors, they just smirk and shrug off, and they're so willing, the conditioned mind is so willing to take the consequences of action instead of informing prior to action, so that the resistance can be less. And the manifester is still willing to take the consequences and be punished for their movement, instead of using this simple strategy of informing before action. So how do we apply this in our lives? How do we look at the mind? Just let the mind do what it does. It's gonna natter, it's gonna chatter, it's gonna measure, it's gonna, do all of this stuff. But I want you to witness it, okay? In the application of moving the mind from a foe to an ally is never making a decision from the shoulda, woulda, coulda. Ever. Never let the measurement of this and that guide you in your next decision. Never. Let decision making be in the body, and the only guide or GPS that you utilize as your navigation device should be your body. And now I use the word should. Has to be your body, because that's what's living the life. So in your journal, begin to write down the decisions you are facing, that you are facing with, that you are faced with, and then record any of those tricky conversations that the mind is having, convincing you one way or the other. And then the most important piece, what is the body doing? What was the body doing prior to the mind talking about the this and that and sabotaging the navigation? Because we have to get to a point where we are only trusting the navigation of the body. That is the important piece. And we have to observe our minds. We must observe the shoulda, woulda, coulda. So, in the description within the Kajabi site, meditation is so important. We live in this universal energy. There's this energy, and it's called scalar energy waves. And when our minds are harmonized, and we are allowing the mind to do what it's designed to do, to decode, to be, that storage unit of, the gray matter connecting to the neocortex and having that communication, decoding our experiences and being that data storage, and then being an outer authority. When this happens, the scalar energy actually is created between the two hemispheres of the brain. And that scalar energy is so important because it actually is, it moves very similar to our DNA. There's this coaxial movement of frequency that happens. It looks exactly like our DNA coaxial. So when we can blend the right and left hemispheres of our brain and allow them to communicate and no longer put up this barrier and this resistance, and let the mind measure, let the mind decode, let the mind, be a beautiful connection and repairing it with our higher source. That's how the mind becomes the ally. So, this is an application piece for you to begin to recognize what's going on. Who's asking you for your energy? Who's inviting you? What kind of initiation came from a statement from someone else? Or what kind of initiation came from your connection to the transiting field? Those are all things that we watch our physical bodies navigate, interact, and then move with. But if the mind is getting in the way, there's a reaction. We don't want to live from reaction, meaning, you're maybe like my mind will say this. I'm sitting in my office and I'm working away, and it's like, hey, do you know that you've got dishes to do? That floor probably needs to be vacuumed. Like, why can't you just go out there and do that floor? So it'll natter and chatter at me. And then if I allow it to start to rule my life, then there's a reaction of the body, and I go out there and I'm frustrated and I vacuum and I do dishes. But if I'm just interacting, okay, if I'm just interacting with the universal energy, my physical body will move me to doing the dishes, and it will move me to vacuuming the floor. You know, this is a very simplistic example here that I'm giving you. When it's correct for my body, and mostly when I go to do those things, I use that action as a meditative state, because I've asked the universe a question. The universe, the source connection that we have, the universe has all the answers, and so do you. But there has to be a pairing up, a pairing with that connection. So my physical body will move to those actions. And then as I'm doing those actions and I am immersed in that action, I can hear the answers that I need to hear. So these are all things you get to play with when you're in meditation, when you're doing breath work. As I'd indicated as well, breath work is fundamental for the clarity of our nervous system. And our nervous system is the entire frequency, of our bodies. This is the synapses of all of the energy field, within us. So anything outside of us has been created based off of the beauty of this physical creation. So the matrix field, the energy field is, it's a frequency field. And you and I get to be connected deeply when we use breath work to enhance our nervous system. So have fun with this. I just want you to drop into how profound the mind is, and it is the mind is the number one most powerful tool that we have. It can keep you completely off track. It can keep you completely 110% distracted from your purpose, from your role, from your frequency that you're designed to operate from. It can keep you 100% distracted. Or it can decode and conceptualize and be this beautiful inspiration for other people when we are trusting strategy and authority. All right, friends, have fun, and we will chat.